honest, not a normal episode.
Remake Rewind.
Thank you for listening to another boner episode of Remake Rewind. So once again, we are finishing our take on the Fast franchise. This one is where it starts to get interesting. It's where the franchise really pivoted, and I'm really excited to talk about Fast 5.
It did a 3-point turn.
Yeah, it really did. So the reason we're doing these, once again, we made the argument that the first Fast and Furious film, or The Fast and the Furious, is a ripoff of Point Break. And we enjoyed watching that movie, and we decided we're going to watch the rest of them, and we're going to force you guys to listen to it. And by force, we're going to record it, and it's up to you guys if you listen. But, you know, whatever.
But you have to listen to it, though.
You have to. But anyway.
We know where all your grandmothers live.
This is our 4th episode on the Fast movies. It's technically the 5th movie. We're doing Fast 5 because we're going to do them chronologically. So we've got a couple more movies before we get to Tokyo Drift. But right away, just off the top, I have to say that at this point, it made no sense to call the movie Fast 5. And the next one's Furious 6 and then F7. At this point, we already had the divergence from Tokyo Drift. They knew that they weren't releasing these chronologically anymore. So this really isn't the 5th movie. It's a little weird to call it Fast 5. Even though it's the 5th movie.
Yeah, I guess so.
But it's not the 5th movie in the series. But it's the 5th.
I mean,
release.
I think you're overthinking it.
Maybe, but when you go, it's almost like the Star Wars movies. Like, you have that conversation, but that makes a little bit more sense. Which do you watch first? Do you watch the original trilogy? Do you watch them in order and you start with the prequels and work your way up? But this one's just like one random movie thrown away.
Somebody asked me that. Yes, I was talking to somebody about the podcast the other day, just doing some shameless self-promotion, and they asked me about Tokyo Drift because I mentioned that it's a prequel, or it's a future quel, right?
Yeah.
That takes place, whatever. I'm not going to try to explain it.
We'll get there.
And they were like, "Oh, so what order do you watch it in?" And my response was, "I think if it's your first time watching the movies, I think you watch it in release order, and we're just doing it differently for the sake of doing it differently. But we've seen the movies."
Yeah.
But if I, was showing this to my child or something, I would just show him chronologically, I think, or release order.
I mean, realistically, release order's fine. It isn't until the 7th movie when they shoehorn that little bit in and they bring the actors back from the 3rd movie where you're like, oh, this throws it off. But realistically, the 3rd one does almost nothing to really change the plot of the rest of the movie. So it's totally fine. It kind of is in its own space. So watch them whatever.
This whole franchise is in its own space, man. It's so weird how it's like a racing movie, but then it becomes not a racing franchise, and it's like James Bond movies kind of, but it's also kind of a heist movie, but it's also like an adventure. They're all anti-heroes. It's also kind of Star Wars, but they're also like superheroes. It's weird. Such its own beast. Well, yeah, and it feels like it's all okay, so it's funny that you bring it up because I realize the end of this movie shouts out what's about to happen or what is happening soonish with Tokyo Drift. Yeah. The end of the movie, they're like, we'll get to Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I think when the movie came out, you're supposed to think like, oh, Han's going to go back. That's nice. He wants to go back to the place that he was way back in Tokyo Drift, right? But upon rewatching, we're like, oh no, he hasn't been there.
Nope.
He's going to go there and die.
Well, and we already know he's coming back in the 9th movie, so it's just...
So, yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, these movies feel so... and especially in the age of Marvel, these movies feel so like pieced together, like jury-rigged, Yeah. It's just like movie to movie, they're like, what would be cool? We're in space. How's that going to work? I don't know.
We'll figure it out. Well, and the thing is, they start getting, with this movie, we start getting post-credit scenes or mid-credit scenes.
I didn't get a post-credit scene.
It's a mid-credit. It's like in the middle.
I tried to fast forward and look for it.
It's like right after the and we'll get to the ending, but right during the credits you have like this weird thing because some of the characters have been in the movie since the very beginning and some of them haven't, but you get this weird thing where it's like you see like a tuner car and you see like little footage from the previous movies with Paul Walker, and it's like Paul Walker, and then you got that with each character.
Rest in peace.
And so you get all these like little animated things, and then it's credits for about a minute or two, and then there's a cut scene, and then we'll talk about it at the end. We'll go through the movie, but then I'll tell you what the cut scene is, or the post credit or mid credit, whatever you want to call it, the stinger.
So having said all that, this is my favorite movie so far.
Oh yeah, so for me, 5, 6, 7 are like one movie. They're all directed by, even the last movie was directed by Justin Lin, but this is where like you can tell Justin Lin took over.
Yeah, this feels so different than the last movie.
At this point, we've already had really like 3, and we're not even counting Tokyo Drift, but if you count Tokyo Drift in the first 5 movies, you kind of have like 4 different tones. So you have your first movie, which is taking itself kind of seriously, but it's a fun movie. It's Point Break. The second movie really tries to do the sequel thing and up the ante and takes itself more seriously. And then you had the fourth one, which was the gritty remake and the gritty like reboot. And then you go to this one, which is just like all razzle dazzle, fun, over the top. And like, this is where the superhero thing, people started calling them superheroes. And what is kind of funny is because I think it's a little less heroic than the fourth one. Because in the fourth one, Fast and Furious, Dom shrugged off a bullet like it was nothing.
Yeah, that's funny because one of my notes here is that it is Dom. Dom gets hit with a crowbar in his forearm, and he just like shrugs it off. He just is kind of, I mean, nobody can see me except you, but he's just like, meh.
Yeah, he just blocks it like it's
not
nothing.
a big deal. He's not like, he's a big guy, and I'm sure that he can,
he can
lift
take a hit,
small car.
for sure.
Yeah, but it's a piece of metal like that breaks his arm, and he doesn't even flinch.
If not breaking your arm, it tears your flesh.
Yeah, he's not made of Kevlar.
But I do agree
Carbon
with you
fiber.
that I think 5 and 6 are my 2 favorites. I think 7 has some really great moments, and we'll get to it. But I think there are parts where 7 kind of jumps the shark. And like, let's be real, every single one of these movies jumps the shark to an extent. But
literally,
this one is just
jumps the cark.
It's fun, and like the ending is ridiculous, but it is fun from beginning to end, and it makes no sense.
I'm going to contradict myself here. So I completely agree with you. The ending is ridiculous, but that's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, they're dragging a bank vault for like 30 minutes of the movie. It's fantastic.
I laughed my ass off when I saw it the first time.
Here's me contradicting myself. I was tuning out on this watch during the vault scene because it was just like overstimulating, I guess. Like there's so much carnage, and it felt like such a long chase. So I think it's diminishing returns. Like it's not really super rewatchable.
Not that scene. I think all the rest of the movie.
That's that scene.
Yeah, I think the rest of the movie is very rewatchable because the characters, with the exception, I brought it up in Too Fast, Too Furious. With the exception of Roman Pierce, played by Tyrese, I think all the characters are super. Well, he just goes by Tyrese. Like in the credits,
I know, but
yes, technically Tyrese Gibson.
But I'm also going to say Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah, well, that's his name now.
Vin Groot Diesel.
Vin Groot Diesel.
Paul, I'm Dead Walker.
Oh man, I had like a Vin Diesel pun the other day. We were watching something else.
Nothing for that. Nothing for Paul Walker. All right.
Nah,
I thought I'd get a rise.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, Paul, I'm Dead Walker.
Oh, you know what? When we get to the 7th one, I got something for you. Anyhow,
okay.
This movie,
keep listening,
I think is very fun, and it starts off right where the 4th movie ends. Like, it literally is.
You know what? So I think this movie really gets fun when they're like, we have to assemble a team, which is exactly 42 minutes into the movie. And I think the first 42 minutes of the movie are, as you said, a continuation of the previous one, and like in tone too. Like the first 40 minutes of this are a little gritty, not over the top,
I get what
but
you're
it feels more similar to the 4th movie. And then all of a sudden they're like I wrote this down. Literally, like the music changes. They're like, we got to assemble a team.
Yeah, you get some Fonzie or Daddy Yankee or something like that. Well, the thing is, it's almost like Wizard of the Oz. It was Wizard of Oz. It's almost like Wizard of Oz, where it's like it is a complete change. It's like it goes from black and white to color. It becomes a fun film as they start interacting with family. And other podcasts have said this and talk about it. And, it starts getting in the posters and the trailers where, most of the trailers are just Vin Diesel's like, family. We got to save our family. we ride or die together as family, whatever.
You're not saying it right.
Family. That was pretty funny that you sent me that, and I had no idea what that was. But
I wasn't gonna call you out, man. You called yourself.
No, it's all
out.
good. It's all good. But the whole thing with the series, you get it in the first movie, but you kind of lose it in the second, the third, and the fourth. Is this whole like the family that you choose or family, and I remember watching this. I'm like, when does this big family thing come into place? Because everybody makes fun of this being so family oriented. And even before we assembled the team, there's a point where Vince from the first movie comes back, and he's the guy that really didn't like Brian, played by Paul Walker. And they go and visit this guy in Brazil, and he's kind of like looking at Paul Walker, and he's like, dude, I don't like you, but you know what? You're a criminal now. You know what it's like. I'm not going to be like too much of a dick. Like, you're welcome to stay at my house or whatever. So this guy has like a little heist set up with like the main drug kingpin in Brazil, and Brazil, and it goes bad, and we'll get into the action sequence, but essentially it goes bad, and Vin Diesel shows up and like he chastises Brian, and he's like, why did you do this? I told you to lie low. And Brian's like, well, we ran out of money, we needed to do something, I made a judgment call. And he's like, bad call, O'Connor. And then he looks at Vince, and he's like, Vince, like, what the fuck? Like, and Vince is like, dude, I thought it was about the cars, I didn't know. And then he starts like talking shit about Brian. He's like, you know what? You guys wouldn't even be in this position if it wasn't for Brian. He destroyed our family. And I'm like, oh, family, finally. But it kind of seemed like ham-fisted at that point.
The whole baby thing seems very ham-fisted, and I didn't really dig the way that they handled Vince's last two scenes.
I didn't feel like it was earned.
Or not last two scenes, I guess. But Vin Diesel kicks him out of the family because he finds out that he didn't know about the setup, but I guess Reyes or Bucho's guys got to him after the fact, and they're like, hey, go get this card or the chip, and we'll from this car that you guys stole, and we'll let you live or whatever. So he goes back and he tries to like put a Band-Aid on the situation, and that's when Vince
I almost wish I didn't see this.
Yeah, finds out that he's doing something shady, and that's where they have the whole conversation that you're talking about. So he kicks him out of the family, and then later he just like he kind of comes back with his tail between his legs, and Vin immediately is like, you were always my brother, you better sit down at dinner and say grace. I don't know why he's a redneck now, but he just like welcomes him in immediately
because he saved Mia from the market, from unseen assailants.
I understand it logically, but I didn't feel in the moment that it made sense.
I don't think it was earned because, one, we hadn't seen this guy in 3 movies. He's back, and he's pretty much the same character. He doesn't really have much growth. And then like he disappears again for like an hour of the movie and comes back, and he's just like, all of a sudden, even though they've been planning this heist for weeks, like this movie takes place over the course of several weeks. They've been planning this heist for weeks.
Yeah, come on back. There's always space in the team.
Yeah, and they're like,
okay.
They just bring him in the day before the heist, and like, yeah,
what's he gonna do?
I don't know.
Like it's a
highly
highly planned.
Yeah, well, then what ends up happening is like they're getting ready to go on the heist, and he's like, "Dude, I'll watch Mia." So was his job just to stay and guard Mia?
He says, "I've got eyes on Mia." Which Vin calls back later. He says, I've got eyes on Nico, which is his kid who's now fatherless.
So
that I rolled my eyes out of the back of my fucking head. Yeah,
so I guess we're just going to go on with Vince for a little bit and just wrap up his story. But they're about to go on.
He looks like Kano, by the way.
Did he play Mortal Kombat? He's playing Kano in the new movie, right? No, is he? No, did he play Kano?
I'm just saying he looks like Kano.
He might have done Kano in the web series.
I wasn't even trying to draw a connection. I'm just saying he literally.
But he does look like him.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you.
The dude that plays Kano, you know who would be a good Kano? Fucking our homeboy, the boys, Carl Urban.
Carl Urban would be great in a lot of things. Give him,
but he would have to be like, it'd be like Kano's movie.
Yeah. Oh god,
he can't be a side character.
Yeah, that'd be tight.
Right, sorry, I completely.
No, it's all good, man. So anyway, like they're getting ready to go on the heist, and we haven't talked about Dwayne the Rock Johnson yet as Hobbs, but Hobbs's crew, who's hunting our crew, shows up right as most of the crew leaves to go do the heist. And there's a fight, they get arrested, and then like the bad guys ambush Hobbs's team with our heroes. So it's Dom, Brian, and Vince are in these big old trucks. There's rocket launchers. Somehow they get loose, and they fight off these drug dealers using weapons they've never used before. Like Vin Diesel's definitely like not a soldier or anything, but he knows how to use this like assault rifle like it's nothing.
He's also like he was fighting a lot in this movie, and he was going up against Hobbs, who clearly is working out every single day.
Yeah.
And not even just a matter of strength, but like, when does Vin Diesel have the time to like practice?
No, he doesn't.
You know what I mean? He looks like he's doing Krav Maga every day.
Yeah, he does.
Or he fights like it, but we know he's not.
Well, and that's the thing is like, and we'll get into it, but long story short, they get ambushed, they fight back, they save Hobbs, and like Hobbs's entire crew dies, but they save him, and then like they think it's done, and Vince ends up getting shot, and they're like that scene that you said, like, I'll keep eyes on Nico, and like Dom and Vince is just like, you got to keep eyes on Nico. I named him. You know what Nico's short for? It's Dominic. I named him after you because you're my brother. And it's just like, I don't feel like that was earned at all.
And also, like, I guess it's short. Well, it's short for Dominic, right? But I think
it's the middle part.
Vin Diesel. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be Domenico though, which is Italian. And I think Vin is like vaguely Italian, which is another weird thing that doesn't really get explained.
Their last names are
his last name's Toretto, right? But he does. I think he plays Italian in another movie, and he never reads as Italian to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever.
I think he is. I don't remember what his. I used to know what Vin Diesel's actual name is, but I don't know what it is anymore. But yeah, the Vince thing didn't really. I don't feel like added anything to this movie. I don't know why they had to bring him in, because literally every movie.
I'm not defending it, but I think it reinforces the family thing. And he's having a kid. They're talking about their dads. Blah blah blah. Like the core of the movie is family.
Yeah.
And bringing Vince back, sort of, and letting him die, and having Dom watch over his kid,
which he doesn't do. He just gives them a duffel bag full of money, and then we never hear about them again in 4 movies.
He just kind of leaves $1 million laying on the counter in like bills from different countries. What's this girl supposed to do with that?
Well, I mean, it's Brazil, so it's like you probably can be fine on money just with cash, like as long as you're not like, hey, I've got $1 million. I just mean it's a bad.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's a bad idea to like leave it sitting in the apartment, probably.
Yeah.
Like there's literally people crashing through the roofs of the favelas every other scene.
Yeah, that's true. So
this guy's just gonna fall into $1 million.
It is a bad
By the
idea.
way, pregnant ass Jordana Brewster and Paul Walker jump into they're escaping Hobbs like the first time they show up, and they jump into like an abandoned building with like a ramshackle corrugated metal roof, and they fall through the metal and then like get away, I guess. How do they fall through that metal and not cut themselves?
I don't know, dude.
Are they up on their tetanus shots?
I
like
guess.
What's going on there?
Well, the whole thing is, you were talking about Dom, and we got a little bit of this in the 4th movie with Brian's character, but you mentioned that Dom is like this great fighter, and we see him like in the 4th movie, he's just like a brawler. He's like picking up people and throwing them into car doors and stuff like that and shrugging off bullets, but he's not like a fighter like with technique. Brian in the 1st movie, like you see him fight Vince in the 1st movie, and it really is like a scuffle. They're like rolling around in the dirt and just grabbing each other. But Brian, by the time you do this one, like he fights a couple people in the last movie, but in this one, like he fights a few guys in the alley as they're running away from both Hobbs and Ray's guys, and he's like
Bucho.
He's doing like full on like Muay Thai kind of like karate moves. He's like throwing elbows, he's throwing arms, he's blocking, he like runs and jumps off of something and like throws a punch as he's flying in the air. Like he is a legit fighter, and like, not to get ahead of ourselves, but like in the 7th movie, he fights like Tony Jaa and like holds his own against Tony Jaa. Like they start getting superhuman fighting skills starting around this movie.
And it's like, I mean, I believe that Brian had some kind of training when he was in the police force.
He would have some basic hand-to-hand combat skills. Sure.
And Dom's been fighting his whole life, right? But these guys are like adults, and they, they ostensibly have jobs. Like, I mean, it's crime. It's like doing crimes, but I feel like we see all of the fights that they get into.
Yeah.
I just don't know where they're getting the experience. And I mean, maybe some people who do MMA can call in or whatever, but I don't think it's like riding a bike. I think it's something that you need to be current on.
Yeah. You have to be practicing.
if Conor McGregor goes 2 years without getting into a fight, I'm sure he could still beat up most people, but he's not going to look the same.
And he's not going to hold his own against somebody who's fighting regularly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant to say. He's not going to step into the ring and be able to take apart somebody.
No. Well, so getting
also,
into
he's a dick.
Another way this movie changed. This movie, it still has cars. Like, obviously, we talked about the safe scene at the end. Like, that's a good 20-ish minute of them dragging a safe and doing some car maneuvers. And then there's, like, a little mini race where they're drag racing each other in cop cars. But there are several times where they're trying to get cars. Like, originally, basically, their plan is they realize they stumble across a microchip that has this drug dealer's cash warehouses. And their goal is to rob one, to force this guy to consolidate all the money in one place, and they're just going to rob that place. Happens to be that it goes to the police station, and so they set up like a mini police station in this warehouse they have, and it has something like a hard right turn and a hairpin turn.
Where are they getting the money to rent this warehouse, by the way?
So they have this where there's a lot of things that don't make sense about it. So one, they're able to get this warehouse. Another point, they're able to get a state-of-the-art safe, like the best safe in the world. They're just able to get one delivered to Brazil.
Meanwhile, they have the FBI's best investigator tracking their every move.
Yeah, the Homeland Security agent, like the best hunter in the world. Plus, they have the police looking for him and the kingpin of Brazil looking for them. And
they have 4 cop cars that they're drag racing. Nobody's like using a camera, like a street camera.
Well, I have issues with that, but they
sees where they go.
They get this safe, and they also mock up all the turns they're going to have to take. Which, did they measure it? Did they go out and measure all the stuff so they can make sure they're mocking it up completely? Because
how lucky that the warehouse has exactly the right
amount of space.
You know.
But they went in and they had one group go in and they hacked the cameras so that they can see it, and they realize there's a 10-second swing. And they realize they're going to get caught by the cameras. So they're like, oh, we need to go get cars. So they off screen, they're just like, oh, we're going to get cars. And you see Brian and Dom at like a street racing like party scene that we see in all the other movies. And they're like, oh, we're home. And then we don't see the race. We just see them back at the warehouse with the cars. And then I
thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. And then they go, oh, we need a faster car. And then they go and do it again. So it's like you see them, like they go to these races like 2 or 3 times, and we don't see the races in a car. Like in the previous movies, we would have saw every single one of these races, and now we're not seeing them.
I think that's the point. Yeah. Like we know that they can win.
Yeah. So
I kind of laughed at that edit, and it's like not that movie anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just goes to show like this is not about racing anymore. Just full stop.
But also like they're going out and doing all these races, like doing illegal shit at like the place where the police would think to look.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the first place that you would think that they would be.
Yeah.
And they're just doing it and like not getting caught.
Well,
by the best of
the best of the best
in the world.
Well, and to your point, they do figure that out. And
the world's greatest
Hobbs shows up with his crew to a street racing event, and they're like, we're going to bring you guys in. And then Dom is like, there's one thing you forgot. This is Brazil.
Yeah, he's got an accent all of a sudden.
Yeah, and he's just like, and then everyone behind him, like hundreds of Brazilian street racers, are like, what? And then Hobbs pulls out guns.
They all have guns.
And then all
every
the
single one of
Brazilians
them has a gun.
Pull out guns.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Like, how does Dom already like control the street racing scene here? Like everybody loves him. Like it's just like in Too Fast, Too Furious, you had Brian, who'd been there for less than a month, is able to get every street racer in Miami to risk getting arrested. It's like the same thing. Like, why are all these people willing to help? Why are all these criminals willing to get?
They're so charismatic,
I guess. Yeah, it's a little weird. The other thing, just really quick on the family thing, the other thing that kind of drove me crazy was the beginning of the movie. Like I said, starts at where the 4th movie ended. It literally, like, it cuts to black in the 4th movie, and then this movie fades from black from like exactly where it left off. They break Vin Diesel out of the prison bus on its way to Lompoc, and there's no way nobody dies in that. But there's just like Perd Hapley from Parks and Rec.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, Perd Hapley is like reporting on this, and he's like, yeah, 27 inmates are in here, and no one was injured, and they all were caught again, except for Dominic Toretto. And it's like, first off, all these people are chained up. There's no way they're not shattering their bones and bleeding out before people get there to save them. Like that they T-bone a bus, and this bus is flipping at freeway speeds conservatively 5 or 6 times.
The bus also flips when it hits Brian's car.
Yeah.
A bus hit his car.
Yeah.
And flipped, and he was fine. Okay, I have a question about that. So Dom got free. They must have helped him out, right?
Yep.
And then got driven away with him. But then we cut to the next scene, and he's in Brazil, and they're just like, we haven't seen Dom ever. Like,
yeah,
where is he?
Vince
we don't know
is like,
anything
where's
about
Dom?
where
Like,
he
we
is.
haven't seen him in a few weeks. And it's like, that was what I was going to bring up is like, where's this family thing that they're making a big deal out, like where he leaves?
I mean, it's also just confusing editing.
yeah.
We literally
like,
just
what
saw
happened?
them break
What
them
was
out
Dom
together.
doing during this time?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say like, okay, so the juxtaposition of those two moments immediately, we're supposed to think like, oh, they broke them out and then they went their separate ways. But like you said, like this whole franchise is about family and blah, blah, blah. And it just, it seems like too big of a jump or a silly jump
and
to
then
make.
they get to Brazil.
It's confusing. It doesn't need to be.
And Vince is like, hey, I've got a job. Brian, Mia, I need a couple drivers. I'm happy to have you guys. And then right as they're getting ready to leave for the job, Dom shows up but doesn't say hi to Mia or Brian. Like, he just shows up.
Yeah, that's another thing. They wanted to save his entrance for the side of the train.
For the actual heist, yeah.
But then it's like, okay, so did he show up the night before and he just jumped on a job? Or...
He showed up like the morning of. Like, Vince was walking out with his bags to go to his heist, and Dom's like, hey. And Vince is like, hey, bud, do you want to join the heist?
I don't pull a lot of heists, so I don't really know. But it seems like it shouldn't be that easy for someone to just like jump on at the last moment. Especially when you spend months planning at like a funhouse warehouse.
Well, this
with 80 million
particular
cars.
heist, the beginning one, clearly wasn't planned out that long. But still, like, Vince knows that this guy, the guy that he's going to be going in on this heist with, is the number 2 for Reyes, the kingpin, essentially. So it's like, dude, what kind of like kingpin business just lets some random stranger in on the heist the day of? So whatever. So we have this big heist. They rob cars off of trains.
Bucho, not Reyes.
Was that?
You know, he's Bucho in Desperado.
No. Well, I'm Reyes is the main guy.
Yeah, but I like calling him Bucho.
Yeah, I
because
haven't
that
seen
movie's
that.
sick.
So you know what? I'm just. Oh, I have
What?
seen Desperado. I don't know why I said I didn't see Desperado. I've totally seen Desperado.
We should. I was gonna say we should watch Desperado.
I've totally seen Desperado.
We could do. I think we could probably do Desperado and El Mariachi.
We can. Totally, we could do that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they're technically sequels, but it's like Evil Dead. Like it's kind of.
it's kind of a remake of his own movie. Yep. So I kind of laughed at this heist because they like blow the sides off this train car that has a bunch of cars in it, and then they like shoot these like cables into the car or into the train, and then these cables they retract and they pull the car with it onto this like truck bed. That can't be good for these cars.
I mean, that wasn't my thought, but I had the same thought immediately afterwards, where they're basically just like jumping the car off of Mad Max dune buggy tow truck into the desert,
which
and
those
then,
cars are not meant to be
like
driving on.
skidding around in the desert, and then to get out of there, they have to drive 50 miles in any direction through the desert for like sports cars. So the amount of work that you're going to have to do to get those cars ready to be sold or whatever is probably going to equal close to the value of the car.
Yeah, it's insane.
Seems like a silly way to steal
it's insane. So then they go off, and this is another thing that makes no sense. The number 2 lieutenant guy, he's like, this particular car is mine. Like, I'm going to drive the GT. But then Jordana Brewster gets in it. She's like, it suits me better. And he's just like, whatever, and lets her go. And this is the car that has the chip, like the MacGuffin of the movie.
Vin says, let her go.
Yeah.
Because he like picks up that something's weird.
Yeah, but still, it's like the guy's just like, okay, fine, and lets it go. So they get the heist.
Well, then he says, no, I mean, I think you're not giving enough credit. He says to his buddy, like, we're going to the same place. We'll get it later.
But still, it just seems odd that you're just like, that he's like so nonchalant about it, but whatever. So they get through it.
He didn't need to like make a point of saying it there. That was his mistake.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird.
So
as an audience,
things go bad. Like the DEA agents on the train see the big Jeep. So now you have the DEA agents storming. So now the shit hits the fan. It's going bad. Brian has to jump on to the Mad Max tractor thing that's hauling the cars. And then he gets back in the train, but they end up killing a bunch of dudes. Like throw guys off the trains. You see them like hit these metal barriers. They end up driving off a cliff into the water just to get
You
a
can't
cut
survive that
immediately.
fall.
Well, the thing is, they had excellent form. So like when you cliff dive, like that is a survivable cliff jump height, but they were driving off the cliff, so they already had that momentum. But like they drive off, they jump out of the car, and then with like expert form cross their legs right as they enter the water, which is what you do with cliff diving.
So it doesn't go up your butthole.
I guess. I don't know if that's the reason,
but you got to protect the goods.
So they do that, and then they're immediately like they surface, and bad guys are already there, and then they get caught, and they're like the implications are about to get tortured, and Vin Diesel just Superman's out of chains. He just like he's chained up to this like pipe, and
he literally just breaks chains.
He just rips them apart, and he like Superman's out, and then Brian just like is like swinging around on the pipe, kicking people, choking people out with his legs. And they get out, and then they're just like back. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and they're waiting for Vince.
Yeah, it's super
Vince
weird.
has a line, by the way. He goes, "How's it feel to be on the other side of a wanted poster?" You mean the fucking backside with the adhesive that they used to glue it to the wall?
God, these episodes are supposed to be shorter, and we haven't talked about any of the other characters. Like we haven't got into like any of it. So like let's get into it.
We have not talked about The Rock almost at all.
We haven't talked about The Rock. We haven't talked about Han.
The Rock's fucking Van Dyke.
Yeah. So
his name's Han Solo, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah. What's funny is that was
fucking
retconned.
cool.
That was not his name. His name was like Han something else in the other movies. But then when you see his like passport or his like wanted poster, whatever it was, it's Han, and then Solo is two separate words. But yeah, he's Han
I think
Solo.
that's awesome.
I like it.
And
that's a
then
retcon I can get behind.
Yeah, and then also at the end of the movie, when they're driving the bank vault, there's a moment where they're like, "We can't get out of this situation," and then Han comes in out of nowhere. He's like, "I'll
Just
save
like
you
the
guys,"
Millennium
which is
Falcon and New Hope.
just like Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon and New Hope.
So immediately, like you said, once they call in the everybody, they're like, it gets fun. So they do the breakdown. They're like, all right, we need a guy who can blend in anywhere, no matter where he is. And then you see like Han, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. He looks like somebody who's traveled and could be just chilling. And they're like, and we need a tech guy. And then you see Tej, played by Ludacris. I'm like, okay, based off some of the other stuff. Okay, that's not a stretch.
Who's great in this movie, by the way. He's so much fun.
Ludacris is my favorite character.
I know. I was thinking about that when he popped up, and then at the end of the movie, I was like, Mike's right. He's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He has the best jokes. He has the best line. I think he has the best comedic timing out of anybody in this. Like, his timing's great. For not being in a lot of movies, I think he carries himself very well. And, like, you've got Vin Diesel, The Rock, all these big actors that he starts being around in subsequent films. And I think he steals most scenes that he's in. So, good on you, Ludacris. You're the best. But
if you want to be on the show,
anytime,
give us a ring.
Open invitation. So his thing makes sense. I'm like, okay, cool. And then they're like, we need somebody who's comfortable around guns and logistics and blah, 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 all these different things. And then you see Giselle, played by Gal Gadot. And then they're like, oh, we need like a crew who can like bust walls and do like all the stuff like James Caan's kid, Scott Conn did in Ocean's 11. Like the guys who are just doing the grunt work.
Demolition experts.
Yeah. And so they get
that's different in Ocean's 11, but
But yeah, they get the guys whose skill is they're handymen. Like they're the jack of all trades. They're not amazing at any one thing, but they're capable. Cool. Makes sense.
Utility players.
And then they get Tyrese. I brought this up in Too Fast, Too Furious. I liked Tyrese in Too Fast, Too Furious. This movie, I hate him. Because they bring him in, they're like, we need the guy who can talk his way out of any situation, and he's so smooth, and he's the smooth talker, and he's so charismatic. And he goes from the first movie we see him in, he's like tough, he can hold himself in situations. Starting in this movie, and it only gets worse going on. He's kind of a coward. He's the first one who wants to quit in every situation. He's the one that whines about everything. And then his one job is to get a remote control car in an evidence box into an evidence locker, which he did get, but it's more through the police not doing their job or doing due diligence, because he shows up, he sees a woman, he's like all cocky, like, oh, I'm going to be able to do this. And the woman doesn't speak English. So then he gets this like kind of this asshole cop. And the asshole cop's like looks at his badge, and he has Brian's old FBI badge, and he's like, it says Caucasian. He's like, oh, I got a tan.
He's just pasted his picture.
Yeah,
on there.
and so he's like, I got a tan, and he's just like starting. The guy doesn't believe, and fine. He's like, fine, I'm just gonna go. And then the cop, without doing any kind of paperwork, just brings this box that says evidence into the evidence room without doing anything. Like, this is more.
It's like a cartoon.
Yeah, it's more like the only reason they succeeded was this cop wasn't very good at his job, not necessarily that Tyrese did a good job.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse going forward in other movies like Fast 6 or Furious 6 or whatever they are, 6 and 7, he's just even worse. So didn't like that. But I really thought they did a great job with the romance between Giselle and Han. Like, I felt like that was pretty organic.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really strike me one way or the other. I like that it exists.
Yeah, it was fine. Like, they didn't just try to, like, shoehorn it in. You saw, they kind of just peppered it in early where you would just see them kind of looking at each other in other scenes, but they didn't just, like, make a big thing until finally he has his little mission to go get the handprint, and she's like, I'll go with you.
I'll drive.
Yep.
She butts in, and Vin Diesel's like, oh, she's going to get that date.
Yeah.
I like that she's finally getting laid because she was so thirsty in the previous movie.
Yeah, she's getting Han Solo. Good for her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's Leia, basically.
Well, and I like both of those characters quite a bit, too. I like that she got a little bit more character development in this one. So you find out that she actually... They take her, like, actual backstory, her actor, because she's Israeli, and she... You know, all Israelis have to, you know, do their 2 years in the military. So he's like, hey, when did you leave the military? She's like, about the same time that you stopped smoking. And, like, they do that stereotypical thing where, like, you break down the person by little things like, oh, you're constantly moving your hands. You constantly have food in your mouth. So you used to be a smoker. Yeah. Based off how much? It's 2 times a day. So they have these things where they figure out who each other are, but there's, like, a mutual respect, like, of the game. And I thought it was a really interesting way to like start a relationship in a movie. I thought it was a pretty organic way for like how criminals would start dating each other.
I'm glad it made such an impression.
Yeah, I just like I like those characters. Like Han and Tej were my 2 favorite characters in the series, and I'm glad Han got Gal Gadot. Good for him.
Yeah, he Gadot her.
Ha.
And it's too bad they didn't have a chance to get married and have a good daughter.
Yeah.
The Rock's team is really funny in this. They look like have you played Call of Duty recently?
Yeah, sure.
So in Warzone, I think the previous games, you can like select your operator is what they call them.
Yep.
It's just like what your character looks like. And there's no story in multiplayer. It's just like running around and killing each other, but it's fun to customize, you know, your weapons or what you're wearing or your character or whatever. And they have like all these different characters. And they're all just sort of like faceless grunts or whatever. And that's exactly what the Rock's team looks like in this.
They're all the most generic dudes.
Yeah.
What I thought was
and it's kind of awesome, but it's like it took me out of the movie a little bit because it's so silly.
They were props because they show up to Brazil and we get like our introduction with it only gets worse as the movie goes, like the Hobbs isms where he says like the craziest fucking catchphrases and shit like that. But I'm
gonna beat you like a Cherokee drum.
Yeah, like stuff like that. So he shows up to Brazil and he immediately like the cop that's there. He's just like, I need 2 things. And they're like, yeah, what do you need? He goes like, I need a guide, and I know I want this one. And he picks, I can't remember her name. It's like Elsa Pataki, I think is her name. They get her, and she's a cop, and we get a little bit of her backstory later on. But he's just like, they're like, why her? She's like just a regular street cop. And Hobbs is like, I like her smile. And then he's like, okay, we'll get her. What's your second thing? Stay the fuck out of my way. That's our first F-bomb in the series. And I'm like, okay.
I think the Rock knows exactly what he's doing.
It's fine. It's totally great. And so, you know, we get a pretty good idea of who Hobbs is right in this first scene. When we finally get Hobbs and the lady cop meet, I feel terrible because I can't remember her name right now.
Yeah, you sexist.
You know, this is her first movie. It's fine.
Bum, bum, bum,
I'm gonna find it. Elena.
I'm doing whole music.
So Elena and Hobbs meet, and her first thing, she's like, why did you want me? My smile's not even that good. Never mind that she's like international model and absolutely stunning. Like she actually is a model. But like we find out that her husband was a cop and like was a good cop and was killed, and you know it's ambiguous as to, you know, whether or not he was killed by organized crime or what, but she decided to join the force, and he's like, you're the only one that I know can't be bought. Cool. You know, I like that.
I like that moment too, because when Hobbs first says that, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of shitty. Like he likes her smile.
Yeah.
Like kind of sucks. And then he sort of reveals that he was just saying that to get rid of the cop that he knew was probably on somebody's payroll. and he wanted her because she actually like
she's the Jim Gordon of the Brazil Police Department, the Rio Police
she
Department.
might be the only real cop.
Yeah.
The Jim.
So what's interesting about this one, once again, Vin Diesel has to have women just all over him. So like we see her and Vin Diesel meet like the first time in that little raid when they're like simultaneously getting attacked by Hobbs's crew and the drug lord's crew. And she doesn't listen. Like Hobbs is like, stay here, and she like goes out and she like stops Dom. Like she holds a gun to him. It's like, hey, I got you. Like chill, bro. And like Dom saves her. And like from there, she just like gives him like fuck me eyes. And like the rest of the movie, anytime they're around, it's just like how Gal Gadot was in the last movie. She's just staring at Vin Diesel every scene that they mix. And then at the end of the movie, after like the heist is done and, you know, they're successful and they all go to their various different countries with their, you know, couple $1 million each that they have, like they each have like $10 million or whatever it is, 11 million. And she's just there with him holding hands at the end of the movie. It's just like, that seems really odd that she just like left her life for this criminal that she's met a couple of times.
Well, she probably didn't have a life there anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, she can't be on the force, right?
Yeah,
I think
guess
somebody would have had her killed. No, I mean, yeah, it is a little weird. And that's why I call these movies kind of James Bondy movies too.
Well, and that's the thing that drives me crazy. I was going to bring it up in the 6th movie, because in the 6th movie, it's straight up like they're given a 007, like a mission that would go to 007 is all the plot of the 6th and 7th movie. And then the problem is when we get into the 7th movie, we find out that there actually are like James Bond like people starting with the 7th movie. So it seems absurd that these jobs are going to this crew, like these like low level thugs essentially are getting these like save the world style missions. But long story short, they do this heist. They have the whole plan. It's kind of like the 2nd movie where just out of nowhere that like the 2nd movie kind of ends with Brian going to Tej and like, hey, we need to escape, and we don't know what their plan is. This movie, like, we have an idea of what their plan is, and then all of a sudden, like, everything goes to hell, and they're just like, we're still gonna do it, and it's a completely different plan. And everything, we don't see it. Like, it's so weird. It's like the best part of most heist movies is the planning part, seeing what it is, and you always know there's gonna be a twist, a part of the heist that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
And in this,
but
in seeing,
they spend all this time creating this plan, which is thrown out the window at the last minute, and then they still but then they still like do the twist at the end, even though the plan's been shot to
like
hell.
how could they have done that? So essentially what ends up happening is after that ambush that we talked about way earlier when we were talking about Vince, Hobbs is like, I'll help you guys out just to like stick it to the bad guy who killed all my men. And so what they end up doing is they break in through the bathroom, pull the safe with chains, and they destroy half of Rio with the safe as they're driving through.
Yeah, let's pause there for a second. I think that's what started turning me off about this whole about the whole safe chase thing. Is that I guess there's not a ton, but there's moments of like extreme collateral damage, like when the vault goes through the bank or whatever, and you see people running from it. Like there's no way they're not killing somebody or maiming somebody, and those are all like innocent people. Like they go out of their way to say that all of the cops are on Reyes's or Bucho's payroll, so they're like cannon fodder, which I guess so. I think you could argue that some of these guys probably didn't have a choice. And they probably still have
when you look
families
at
and
how
stuff.
many,
they're probably not that bad at
when
guys.
you look at how many cops there actually
that's not
were,
even,
a lot of them are probably,
and that's not even
the good cops. Well, good cops in quotes, that maybe weren't necessarily on the payroll, but really were just responding to this. And
that's
chase.
not even the extent of it, though. Like it's straight up innocent people, like in the bank vault, and Dom and Paul Walker are just like, oh man, that was crazy.
And like they do go to the, like we do see everyone jump out of the way, so we never explicitly see
and The Rock never brings it up. Like The Rock's character, we're led to believe, is the guy who would be like,
Law and Order guy.
You killed 300 people and blah 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 and this and that.
The thing is, so they do all this
funny catchphrase.
There's a point that makes no sense, like physics wise. Like initially you're like, okay, they've never done this, but they're so in tune with their vehicles, they could figure out how to tow a truck. We talked about, what did we call him? Mack Truck Nito in the last episode. So I'll buy that they figure out how to do this, even though they've never practiced this.
There's no way to practice that.
But they're
nobody
experts.
practices.
They do like
two cars Jaegering a fucking 10-ton safe
So
through
they
the
do
streets.
like doughies to flip this thing around like a mace and a flail and everything. Like they're controlling the safe like they know what they're doing. And there's a point where like hard right, and eventually there's a point where they get away from the cops. Mia's like is the man in the chair kind of thing, and she's like, all right, you got a 10-second window, and then it just cuts to them on the bridge, and that's what the twist is. We eventually go back. Turns out they went down an alley under a bridge. They swapped out the safe, took the decoy safe that they had order, and take that back out. There's no way you could have done all that in 10 seconds, but whatever. But there's a point where they're dragging the safe, so Vin Diesel's pulling it, and then Paul Walker is reversing and pushing the safe. But there's a point where Paul Walker like slams on the brakes so that way like a cop car will hit him. But that there's no way that Vin Diesel could have known that he was going to do that. And like the safe, like he would have either had to drag Paul Walker or he would have got tugged by Paul Walker's brakes. That didn't do anything. So the physics are a little off, whatever. But at the end of the movie, you think they're going to get caught. Like they get on the bridge. And Paul Walker's like, there's no way we can outrun him on the bridge. And the bad guy's like, there's no way they can outrun us on the bridge. And then Vin Diesel's like, this was always the plan, and like disconnects Paul Walker's cables. And then Paul Walker still just ends up leaving. Vin Diesel crashes the safe and fights a couple of guys. And then the bad guy's just laying on the ground. Hobbs shows up out of nowhere, just cold-blooded, kills the guy. Just shoots the bad guy in the face.
That's for my team.
It's like,
well, I don't mind that so much though, because Hobbs is like being set up as being another guy that leaves law enforcement to sort of. And I don't think he actually leaves, but he's on the fringe.
Yeah.
You know, he's like becoming one of these sort of outlaw
like,
characters.
As far like he's still like Department of Homeland Security. Like he's not like CIA like licensed to kill kind of guy. Like he can kill in the line of duty, but like he's still a cop. Like you can't just kill a guy in cold blood. Like it's a little dark.
I mean, you definitely can't do it.
Yeah, like what he did was not okay.
Like, this movie is weirdly dark at times. Like the death of his team in the middle of the movie is pretty brutal. Like there's, I think, a 15-second moment where one of his teammates is like Hobbs is on the ground and he's like, oh, you know, he's stunned or whatever. And he looks over and sees one of his teammates and he's like, you know, his eyes are saying, I'll come rescue you, brother. And the guy is laying in the cab of a flipped over truck and he like looks over at Dom. He's like, come save me, I can't move or whatever. And then somebody throws a grenade and there's like a solid 5 seconds where they're just cutting between the Rock and this dude and the grenade, and they're just looking at each other, looking at the grenade's sitting there, they're looking at each other, looking at the grenade's sitting there. I think there's a moment the grenade is like, y'all are fucked. And then it fucking blows up and kills this guy, and it's just like, it's so dour. And I was like, oh,
you also get like
this movie like gets dark very at very weird times.
So
and then the next scene is like boom, ba-doom, ba-boom. It's a girl's ass. Boom, ba-doom, ba-boom.
So we get another dark moment is it was pretty funny. So Katrina was like doing something in the bedroom. I was watching. She just woke. I watched this movie before Katrina woke up yesterday morning, and it's the scene where The Rock and Vin Diesel are fighting, and like you just like it's a pretty brutal fight. And there's a point where it's just like you just hear grunts and like
I wrote that down too. There's so many grunts.
There's so many grunts and you just hear like contact of bodies hitting. And so Katrina kind of like she's not out in the living room. She's like walking in our hallway and she's like looks at me because she can hear it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that there was a Vin Diesel, The Rock sex scene in this movie because they're just like, it's really dirty sounding.
The bi-curious man love in this series becomes very aggressive.
And it only gets worse in the next movie, like their weird like relationship. But it's
still there, but it's very different.
That fight scene, though, eventually gets to a point where Dom is just so
anymore.
angry and he's about to lose control and he picks up like a pipe wrench and he's about to hit The Rock and Mia's like, no, Dom. And then he like, hits the ground.
I had a logistical issue with that scene too, with that moment.
Yeah, it's just like, but we had already seen him do that in another movie.
All the guys, and also in that moment, all of Hobbs' guys have their guns on him and they can stop the fight at any point by shooting Dom. And The Rock at some point tells him like, no, I got this. I want to fight him. I want to fuck this guy. I mean, fight him. And they're fighting. And then Dom is clearly doming The Rock, and he lifts up the pipe wrench and he's about to slam it on his head. I mean, he does it, but like how does one of the team members in that moment
Not
not go?
unload on him.
Oh, I think the Rock is about to die.
Yeah.
I need to shoot this guy. Like, okay, he's clearly won the fight. I need to end this. So they kind of like would have let the Rock die. So I think they all actually had like a vendetta.
Yeah,
against
it's
him.
super weird.
I think like off screen he treated them really poorly, and they were like, if he dies, he dies.
But so we get to the end of the movie, and I thought this was pretty fun. We see all the different ways they spend their money.
It took so long for this movie to end.
Yeah, it was like Lord of the Rings. They each got their little ending. So you had the brothers, who I really like the brothers.
Less walking.
And they
have cars.
both go to a casino, and they both bet their $10 million on, one of them bets it on black, one of them bets it on red, and ends up being green. They lose it, and
Did we get an answer? I thought they cut before it was clear.
Oh, I think it was supposed to be green. I think they cut. I don't know. I'm assuming it went green. But then we have Tyrese buys like this multi-million-dollar car, and he's like, "There's only one in the Western Hemisphere." And then Tej happened to have it too. And I liked their relationship throughout the movie. They give each other shit, but you can tell they're actually really good friends at this point. And then you got Mia super pregnant at the end, and Vin Diesel shows up with his lady friend. And then the mid-credit stinger.
Elena.
Elena.
She's in the whole movie. She has a name.
Then you get the end of the movie. There's a mid-credit scene. Ava Mendes is back from Fast and Furious. And
God damn it! I'm bummed I missed that.
so what happens? You see The Rock, and he's at his desk in the dark, and he's got like folders, and he's like flipping through folders. And
He's Batman in this movie.
kind of.
He's the world's greatest
Yeah.
detective, and he also like uses his brain to beat shit
So
up.
he's looking through all these folders in the dark. Like, there's no way he can actually read this. His eyesight's probably
he
suffering
broods.
from this. But
from all the concussions he
yeah,
has.
so Ava Mendes walks in, and she's like, "I've got something for you. Street racers stealing something or something in Europe." And he's like, "Is it Dominic Toretto?" And she's like, "No." He's like, "Not interested." She's like, "Yes, you are." And she throws a folder down, and it has Letty's face on it.
What?
And that's
Of course, I know she comes
Yeah.
back, but I forgot that's when they revealed it.
that's the little cutscene.
Okay, here's my question. This is a superhero movie.
Yep.
This is a superhero franchise. What superheroes are all of these characters? I think The Rock is clearly Batman.
He's I guess. I feel like
Well, give me that one, and then let's talk about other people.
that's tricky. Let's see. Like Batman,
One of
'cause
them's
he's a
gotta
good
be Tony
detective, or even
Stark.
like Black Panther. Same thing. Black Panther's like the Batman of the MCU. I know
No,
Iron Man has.
No, he's Batman.
Who's
He's
Iron
Batman.
Man?
No, Iron Man's Iron
Yeah.
Man. The Rock is Batman.
He could also be Black Panther. Like Black Panther has.
Why are we still talking about
I
The
don't
Rock?
know.
Who? Let's talk about other
Let's
characters.
see.
Like, who's Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel, maybe Captain America.
No, he's not Captain America.
But he's one of the leaders.
He's one of the
you know?
leaders, but he's
So he's like, it's like Captain America or Tony Stark.
He's like Wolverine. where like people kind of like defer to his judgment, but he's kind of gruff and he's the best.
Is Wolverine a leader though?
He does.
He's kind of an outsider.
It depends on who's writing him and when, but he's also the guy. I'm the best at everything. Like Wolverine's the best at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice, and that's kind of dumb. Like he has the anger.
He
has the capacity
I
for
lean more.
love. Because you have to look at Wolverine when he likes
I
somebody.
think Dom is Iron Man.
No. If anybody, that's Tej. He's the tech guy.
No, just because he's technological.
Is he
Nah, dude.
Forge from the X-Men?
I don't know. Who
Oh,
Forge
Forge is like his mutant powers. He can build.
I'm talking
anything.
about I'm talking more about like personality traits or like major things that stick out. Like I'm just saying, Tej can't be a leader of a team.
Yeah, so
'cause
that's
he's
why I
not.
said he's Forge. He's like the support character. Forge is like the support
Okay,
character of
but-
the X-Men.
But no, I think Dom is like kind of cocky. He's one of the leaders. He's the glue of the.
Well, if you
of
look at
his
like
group.
the X-Men movies and some of the cartoons,
and I think about him.
I think he's Wolverine.
I think about him using his. I think him using his car as an extension of himself kind of works as the Iron Man suit. And I know they all kind of do it, but he's like.
But you
the
also have to
guy
look at
that
the
does
fact,
that.
like you said, he took a wrench to the arm like it was nothing, like his bones were coated in metal too.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
No, he's definitely
All right,
Wolverine.
who's Paul Walker?
Paul
Paul Walker?
Walker, I think, would be closer.
Wait. People should write in and say and give us suggestions or say who they agree with.
Yeah, we'll throw it out there. I doubt anybody will respond, but we'll throw it out there. I think.
Well, don't say
if you-
that. We have to give
if
the
you
illusion
have
that we're a
to
big
give
podcast.
it to, if you're gonna say anyone's Captain America, it would be Paul Walker, the
Yeah, okay,
Aryan
that's fair.
kind of look, and the I have to do what's
Are
right.
you watching The Boys, by the way?
Yeah, I'm one episode
Speaking of
behind.
Aryans?
I haven't watched the one that came out on Friday yet.
All right, we'll talk about him. What are you watching next week?
So I think he's
okay.
that.
So Paul Walker might also be Spider-Man.
No, he's not funny enough, and he doesn't have that personality.
I guess he's not. Yeah, he's not young enough.
I don't even care about the age. It's more like he doesn't have that humor. If anybody's Spider-Man, then maybe that would be Tej, because he's a smart ass, but he's also the smart guy.
Yeah. Okay, I'm into that. Tej is Spider-Man. Who's Tyrese? He's like kind of a fuck up. He's kind of a coward, but he like comes around to doing the right thing, right?
He's just kind of there. I feel like he's
like Ant-Man or something.
Yeah, like he's there, but he's not the best, but he's just kind of there. Yeah, I think
he's Aquaman.
Oh, not the Jason Momoa one though.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he's old Aquaman.
Let's see. I think Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman or Black Widow. She's got she's Black Widow.
Wonder Woman's too easy.
Yeah.
Who's Mia?
Mia's like, she could be Pepper Potts, or she could be like,
or MJ,
or she could be like Batgirl after she's crippled.
Yeah. No, that's not fair though, because she was the man in the chair in this movie, but she's done plenty of stuff.
Yeah, so did Batgirl.
So MJ I'm saying like MJ's not fair. I'm calling myself out.
Got it.
And Pepper Potts is kind of not fair.
I think
either.
Batgirl.
Like, she doesn't really. Yeah, I think Batgirl. You're right. I don't think she even needs. I don't want to compare being pregnant to being crippled. So
well, no, I just mean once Batwoman,
she's
Batgirl.
She's not
got
Oracle.
her, or Batgirl got shot in the back. She became Oracle and became the woman in the chair.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'm saying she's Batgirl. She's not Oracle. Yeah. Okay. Who else do we have? Tyrese. Oh, Han.
If you're not gonna say, I mean, we already said Dom was Wolverine. I would say he would be like the backup Wolverine. He's Gambit. He's Gambit.
Yeah, he's definitely not Wolverine.
Well, just because he's the one.
He's like cool and
he's
collected,
Gambit,
dude.
for sure.
Malche.
Yeah, he's Gambit because he's like suave. He gets the girls. He's got the skills. He's got the shady past. Nah, he's Gambit.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we've just got the brothers.
They're like Magneto's kids.
No, because they're super powerful. Let's see who's kind of.
Oh, we haven't talked about Fantastic Four.
What about it?
I'm thinking about like Fantastic Four characters that we could compare these people to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you combine them collectively, they're kind of the thing. Like they're the support character who's just like he never wants they're not ever going to be in the spotlight, but they're there to support everybody.
I guess the Thing kind of like parties too.
Yeah, I think collectively he's like they're the Thing.
I like we're totally off the rails. I like that the Thing and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles share the same kind of costume when they try to go out.
The trench coat and
the overcoat with the hat. They look like a businessman in the 50s trying to get out of the rain. But they're huge.
I love those movies. The old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones. Those are great.
Yeah, dude. I rewatched the first one.
It's so good.
Earlier in quarantine.
It holds up.
Fantastic.
It holds up.
There's a part where one of the guy this guy gets into a cab and they almost hit Raphael when he's in his outfit, and he goes, the guy in the back of the cab says to the driver like, "What was that? Is that a giant turtle?" And he goes, "Yeah." Hey, you still going to LaGuardia?
You got a young Sam Rockwell in that movie. It's a great movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, dude.
I think we've gone off the beaten path. We said a lot of bad things about this movie, but so far it's a
so much
super fun movie. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to the sixth one because I think the sixth one is my favorite of all of them. So nice. I'm really excited.
Kurt Russell's in the 7th?
He starts in the 7th. He's in 7th and 8th.
It's funny how these movies are kind of like the Expendables, except they actually work.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited to get into the next two. The 8th one I think is okay. But the 6th and the 7th one are really, really fun. And the 7th one, considering that the lead actor passed away in the middle of filming it, and it came together as good as it did, is pretty impressive. So I'm really excited about the next couple.
So they haven't said anything about the 9th one yet, right?
What do you mean?
Well, it's done, right? Because it was done. Out.
Yeah, it was supposed to be out in May.
But they haven't said when they're trying to release it. Or
It's May of next year. They pushed it a whole year. So, yeah, they just pushed it to May 2021. Universal was just like, we're not going to fuck around. We're just going to push everything to next year or release it on VOD.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's the way
Yeah.
to do it. You know, you look at how the movies that did come out this year, they're all like embroiled in this controversy. You know, Tenet got it the worst, or brought it upon itself the worst. But even like Mulan and stuff, it just became like a whole thing. And then they charged $30 for Mulan. Did we talk about that in that episode? Whether or not it was worth the $30?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't listen to our podcast.
I saw Tenet the other day.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did. We drove to Orange County to
You
see
didn't
it.
Tenet. Fuck off.
We did. After Friday, with how bad
don't believe
Friday
you.
was with RBG, Katrina came home because my friend went and saw it. My friend lives in Irvine, and he's like, I went and saw it, and he told us, he goes, dude, there was nobody in the theater. He's like, he went to the Dolby Theater, which was a big one. He's like, that theater seats like 180 people, and there were less than 20 people in it. There was nobody around me.
Wow.
So what Katrina and I did is we waited, and we went to a regular one. We didn't go to like Dolby or whatever because we wanted the least amount of people in there. So we conveniently bought our tickets spaced apart from each other, so we would have that extra gap on either side. And we also went to a theater that I knew that I've been, because I work in Orange County, even though I live out here in Burbank area. I went to a theater that I knew had like the barriers between each row. So like the closest person to us was easily 30 feet away from us. And
And you felt comfortable sitting in a room with recycled air for 2 hours?
So AMC in California and New York, they actually upgraded their filtration systems, and we wore our masks the entire movie, and we wiped down our seats just to be safe. We wiped down everything. We didn't get food. We got a drink, and we brought a sandwich baggie to put over the straw when we weren't actually using it to, limit contact. But it honestly was one of the better movie going experiences I've had, because there was like nobody there.
Wow.
And
yeah,
the movie
incredible.
was incredible. Like,
okay, I was gonna say, give me a review in under 10 words with no spoilers.
it is a mindfuck, and I'll just say this: the conceit of the movie.
So many more than 10 words,
yeah,
but okay.
It's a mindfuck, and they give you enough of an explanation where you think you can kind of understand the movie, but not enough where it's still like at the ending you're still kind of like, wait, what the fuck just happened? Like, it's visually amazing. It's just. It was definitely worth watching. I was really excited to see it.
Where do you rank it in Nolan's filmography?
I'd put it up there with Inception.
Where do you put Inception?
Inception, it's tough because his movies are so different. Like, I think Christopher Nolan's my second favorite director behind Edgar Wright. So
Nice. This is why we get along.
So I love every Christopher Nolan film. I'd probably say, what's funny is I'd put Interstellar pretty high up there, and I've only seen it once because it's one that you really.
Really?
I really liked it. I've only seen it once. I own it.
I did too. I'm surprised you only seen it once.
It's one of those movies you have to sit there and watch. Like, anytime I watch a Christopher Nolan movie, I commit to not, unless it's the Batman movies that I've seen a bunch, I commit to not being on my cell phone or anything. So
Yeah. Interstellar is if you're invested in and you're buying into the whole thing, it's a rough watch too. It's a lot of Matthew McConaughey crying.
But I really like that one. But I think in terms of watchability, taking the Batman movies out, which I love, but I think I go Memento. I think is still his best film. And then
That's interesting.
I still love that movie. So, but I think they're almost all ties to me. It's really hard for me to put them in an order. But I go like Memento, just because it was the first one. It was such a unique film and so well done. And I really want to go back and watch The Prestige, because The Prestige is a masterclass in editing.
Yeah, so good.
And then Inception, I'd probably go Inception next. Like, Inception's probably the most fun to watch because it's a straight up action movie with a really great concept. And I'd put this right up there with that. It's very well acted.
Okay,
it's
so
beautiful.
Top 3 almost.
Yeah, I would put it up there. I was telling Katrina while we were watching, I'm like, this is already probably my top 20 films. Like, it's fantastic.
And John David Washington's great.
Yeah, just like he was in Black Klansman. He's an incredible actor. I can't wait to see what he does after this.
Yeah, assuming that everybody agrees with you about how good it is, I'm sure he's going to get tons of roles.
Oh yeah, he deserves it. Like,
how's Kenneth Branagh?
He's good. I mean, it's Kenneth Branagh. Come on. Yeah, he's good.
Well, I mean, he picks some weird things.
He picks some weird things, but he's always good. I can't think of it.
He's always interesting to watch.
He was fine. He was just kind of like a generic Russian dude. But there was I'm not going to spoil anything, but he has this motivation, and he plays this like stereotypical rough Russian oligarch kind of guy.
I feel like you're telling me
No,
too
that's
much.
it.
I don't even
But,
want to know this much.
He's just like your generic Russian guy, but like his motivation, there's a point where you're like, you feel for him and everything. So like he's a well-rounded character.
I don't want to hear
But
anymore.
that's it. No, but everybody's performance is great. Our Pats was fine in it.
I don't know that I can. Who?
Robert
Sorry.
Pattinson,
Oh, okay.
he's fine.
Battinson. I don't know that I can bring myself to go to a theater. That's interesting.
Honestly, I was a little.
I know. I'm not judging you. Obviously,
I was a little apprehensive initially. Like I was like, I don't know. But then when Katrina's like, let's do it. And then like we talked about, okay, this is what we're going to do to make sure it's safe as possible. We cleaned the chairs and everything. And then seeing the AMC guys going, they just like, they went in with like a mister thing, like a big old pump thing. And they're just spraying everything with sanitation stuff. So like, honestly, I was pretty surprised at how good it was.
That makes sense because they don't want to be this, they don't want a headline that says Corona super spreader event at a tenant screening at AMC theaters.
I feel after going and seeing what they were doing, I feel a lot better about it. Now, that being said, if theaters were, and I was very careful about what tickets I bought, like if we were doing it here in Burbank, where there's a lot more people than there are in like Irvine, I would almost wait until the last possible minute, find a couple of seats, do the same thing, spread them out. Like I put a gap seat between Katrina and mine, so that way we'd have a longer thing when we just sat next to each other. I might not be able to do that here, so I would be a little bit more apprehensive. Like I would go and see like a 4:00 showing right after I get out of work versus, an evening showing. And we also went in like a middle showing, like the second showing of the day, not an evening one we tried to pick the show that we knew was going to have the least amount of people in it. So I feel better
Crazy
about
times,
seeing it, like how they were doing it, like in the way they were doing the food and the drinks and everything. Like you can't go and get your own drink. Like they have somebody filling it up for you. And like they do this whole thing, like they put hand sanitizer on, then they grab the cup and they're like, which drink do you want? Like you pay for everything. And then you go over to a separate station where they get you your drinks. And then he hand sanitizes, grabs the cup, asks what you want. He puts the lid on and then he gives you the straw. And then there's a hand washing station right there. And there's wipes right there. Feel free to bring wipes in to clean the seats if you want to be extra cautious. Like they were very adamant. Like if you don't feel comfortable with the cleanliness, by all means, clean this again yourself. Like
by all means, clean our theater.
But like it was clean. Like it seemed clean. Everything like and watching.
I know. I'm just laughing at the
conceit
conceit of that.
It seemed like they knew that there were people like a little apprehensive about it, and they're just like, by all means, we have everything here to make you feel like that. I feel a lot better about it actually after doing it. Like now, granted, there's nothing else that I'm gonna want to see until Dune and Wonder Woman. Like Wonder Woman, I'm pretty sure is gonna get pushed to next year, but they've made it seem like Dune is gonna come out this year for sure. So like, I didn't reactivate my A list because I know I'm not gonna see anything until December. So
yeah,
like I just paid.
I got the A list in February right before the lockdown. I still haven't watched the Dune trailer, by the way. Holding strong.
So when we were watching the movie, the Dune trailer came on, and Katrina was like,
I'd watch it if I saw it in the theater.
she's like, fuck, now I got to read Dune. And I'm like, I have the audiobook too. Go ahead and just listen to the audiobook. So
that's funny.
Yeah. Well, we ended up doing a full episode's worth of recording, but check out.
If you should speed it up double time so it's only like 34 or 30.
Well, tell our
40
listeners
minutes.
where they could find you. All the plugs real quick.
Yeah, on Instagram at Dysalexic, DYSAlexIC, on Twitter at Palishi, just my last name. I'm also on Letterboxd at Twitter if you want to follow along with what I'm watching. And
you're at Letterboxd at Twitter.
Oh my god, I'm at Palishi on Letterboxd, same as my
There you
Twitter.
go. I want to make sure. Make sure you get the
really-
followers.
Yeah, no, thank you.
All right,
and shout out to my man Ryan P for making all these dope memes.
DJ Ryan Fresh.
Ibra.
No, that's pretty great. I
sad I
asked
just
him
did
to
that.
send me all of the ones that he's done so far, and you used to be able to do an album on the Facebook pages for businesses. It doesn't look like you can do that, but I was going to make an album specifically for his shout outs that he's been doing for us. But no, it's pretty cool. And but check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MDXpods. If you want to support the show, these little bonus episodes for Fast and the Furious, we're going to have these up on our normal feed. But once we get through the Fast and the Furious movies, we're going to continue doing these bonus episodes, but they're only going to be on Patreon going forward. So you can chip in $1 and you'll get, another couple of episodes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.